smelled like rain and forgotten promises. Clara hadn't been home in 7 years, long enough for the town to change, but not long enough for the memories to fade. The bookstore's old sign still creaked in the wind, hanging stubbornly over the cobblestone street like a ghost that refused to leave. She paused at the door, tracing her fingers along the chipped wood, where her initials once sat beside his. JL plus CR, faded now, but still there, just like him. Inside the shop smelled like old paper and cinnamon. Her grandmother's scent lingered in every corner, wrapping around her like a hug. And for a moment, Clara let herself breathe, really breathe, until she heard his voice. Didn't think he would actually come back. She turned, and there he was, Liam Hart, the boy who had once promised her forever, standing behind the counter like he had never left. His hair was shorter, his jaw sharper, and his eyes, those same stormy eyes that once made her believe in magic. Clara swallowed hard. Didn't think you would still be here. He gave a half smile. Guess we were both wrong about a lot of things. The silence that followed was thick. Years of unsaid words, broken hearts, and everything in between pressing against the walls of that tiny shop. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, something else sparked. Something dangerous, tender, and completely alive. And just like that, the story began again. Hey dreamers, welcome back to Blessing Storyverse, where we don't just tell stories, we live them. Today's tale is full of mystery love twists, so grab your popcorn and let's dive into another chapter.
Welcome back, stranger. Clara didn't expect the air to feel so heavy inside the bookstore. Maybe it was nostalgia, or maybe it was Liam, still leaning on the counter like time hadn't moved at all. He wiped his hands on a cloth, his gaze meeting hers for a moment too long. "You're earlier than I thought." She shrugged. "My train didn't feel like breaking down this time." That earned her a faint grin, the kind that used to undo her completely. She hated that it still could. The place looked the same, but different. New shelves, same smell. A pot of coffee brewing behind the desk. Her grandmother's mug sitting beside a second one, Liam's apparently. He'd stayed. Helped. Been here when Clara wasn't. "Your grandmother's upstairs," he said, gesturing toward the spiral staircase. "She's been talking about this day all week." Clara smiled softly, her chest tightening. "I missed her." "I know," he said quietly. "She missed you too." He turned away then, pretending to fix a pile of books, but his hands hesitated. The tension between them buzzed like static, that same invisible thread that had never really snapped, no matter how far she ran. Clara took a step closer, the floor creaking under her boots. "You didn't have to stay, you know," she murmured. He glanced back at her, his voice steady but low. "Yeah, I did." For a moment, neither spoke. Just the sound of rain tapping against the windows, and the soft hum of the coffee machine. It felt like the past had cracked open, and all the feelings she buried came rushing back. Her grandmother's laughter drifted from upstairs, breaking the tension. Clara exhaled, forcing a smile. "I should go see her." Liam nodded. "Yeah, go on." But as she walked away, she could still feel his eyes on her, the same look that once made her believe she was his entire world. And maybe, just maybe, she still was. Coffee, confessions, and complications. The next morning, the rain hadn't stopped. It tapped lightly against the bookstore windows, turning the whole place into a cocoon of warmth and nostalgia. Clara came down the stairs, hair messy from sleep, wrapped in one of her grandmother's oversized sweaters. She froze when she saw him again. Liam, behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, making coffee like it was his new full-time job. He looked different in the morning light. Calmer. Softer. Dangerous in a quiet way. Morning, he said, glancing up. Coffee? She hesitated. You still remember how I take it? 3 sugars, too much cream. He smiled faintly. Some things don't change. Her heart gave a small, traitorous flutter. She sat by the counter, pretending to scroll through her phone while he poured her a cup. The smell alone almost made her melt. He slid it toward her. Their fingers brushed, just for a second, but it was enough to send heat racing up her arm. Clara cleared her throat. So, you've been running this place with Grandma all this time? Liam nodded. After your mom called. Said she couldn't do it alone anymore. I was between jobs, so... He shrugged. I stayed. Clara stared at him. That's kind of big, Liam. You never told me. He met her gaze then. Eyes soft but unreadable. You never asked. The words stung more than she wanted to admit. She looked down at her cup, hiding the tiny smile tugging at her lips. He'd stayed. For them. For her grandmother. Maybe even for her. Still fixing things you didn't break, huh? She murmured. Guess it's what I do best, he said quietly. Their eyes met, and suddenly, the air between them wasn't just heavy. It was electric. Before either could say another word, the bell over the door jingled. A woman stepped in, tall, confident, and holding an umbrella like it was an accessory. Not a necessity. Liam, she greeted, her voice sweet but sharp. You ready for lunch? Clara blinked. Lunch? Liam froze, then gave a small, polite smile. Yeah, give me a second. The woman turned toward Clara, offering a practiced grin. You must be Clara. I've heard so much about you. And just like that, the warmth drained from the room. Because that woman wasn't just anyone. She was the kind of person who made you question everything. You thought you knew about second chances. Her name was Elise. If the universe was trying to test Clara's patience, it was doing a great job. Elise was everything she wasn't. Tall, elegant, glowing in a cream coat that probably cost more than Clara's suitcase. She had that effortless confidence that came from knowing exactly where you stood. Clara, on the other hand, wasn't so sure anymore. Liam poured a second cup of coffee, his movements slower now, more deliberate, like he could feel the tension thickening the air. Elise, this is Clara Rivers, he said finally, his tone careful. Clara, meet Elise Bennett. She helps with the local history museum. Helps? Elise laughed softly, resting her manicured hand on Liam's arm. Oh, come on, Liam. You make it sound like I don't practically run the place. Clara smiled politely. That's nice. Clara's been gone for years, Elise continued, her voice sugary but edged. It must be strange coming back. Everything's so different now. Clara sipped her coffee, pretending not to notice the way. Elise leaned just a little closer to Liam. Some things don't change, she said lightly, glancing at him. Some people don't either. Liam looked up then, eyes meeting hers for a second too long. Elise noticed. Well, Elise said, her tone cooling. We should get going before the rain gets worse. Yeah, Liam said, grabbing his coat. I'll be back soon, Clara. Take your time, she said, forcing a smile. The bell jingled as the door shut behind them, leaving her alone with the sound of rain and a dozen questions she didn't want to ask. Her grandmother's voice floated down the stairs a moment later. Still burns, doesn't it? Clara turned, startled. You were listening? Please, I might be old, but I'm not deaf. Her grandmother chuckled. That boy's got more feelings than he knows what to do with. But you... She paused, eyes twinkling. You still look at him like he hung the moon. Clara sighed, her defenses cracking. He's not the same, Grandma. Neither are you. she said softly. And maybe that's the point. Outside, the rain finally began to slow. But inside Clara's chest, it was still pouring, hard, messy, and full of memories that refused to fade. The night of the storm. By evening, the rain had turned violent. Thunder cracked over the small town, and the lights in the bookstore flickered like a heartbeat trying to hold on. Clara stacked the last few books on the shelf, trying to ignore the storm, or the way her chest still ached from seeing Liam and Elise earlier. Then, with one final flash of lightning, the power went out. She groaned. Perfect. A voice came from the doorway. Need a flashlight. Her heart skipped. She didn't even have to turn around. Liam, he stepped in, soaked from the rain, shirt clinging to his chest, hair messy in a way that should have been illegal. He was holding a flashlight and 2 cups of coffee. I thought you were with Elise, she said, trying to sound casual. He placed the cups on the counter. We finished early. She had other plans. His eyes found hers. I wanted to check on you. Lightning flashed again, lighting up his face. The bookstore was bathed in soft, flickering glow, the kind that made everything feel closer, more intimate. You shouldn't be out in this, Clara murmured. He smiled faintly. Guess I never could stay away when you needed me. Her breath caught. The words landed heavier than the rain outside. For a moment, neither moved. The only sound was the steady drumming of water against glass, and their unspoken history between them. You left, she whispered finally. Back then, when I needed you most. He flinched. Clara, you know why? No, she said softly. I knew what you told me, but I never knew what was real. He stepped closer, his voice low. What was real was you. Always you. Her heart thudded painfully. Then why didn't you fight for me? He looked at her like he'd been waiting years to say it. Because you were too busy running away. The silence stretched, heavy and sharp, but this time, neither turned away. Lightning illuminated them again, too close now, their breaths mingling. He reached out, fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. Clara, he said quietly, tell me to stop. She didn't, and in that moment, with thunder roaring and rain beating against the windows, he kissed her, slow, desperate, and full of every word they'd never said. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. This doesn't change anything, she whispered, but her voice trembled. Liam smiled faintly, thumb tracing her jaw. Doesn't it? Morning after the rain, the storm had passed, but the silence it left behind was deafening. Clara stood by the bookstore window, watching the sunlight creep through streaks of rain still sliding down the glass. The town looked washed clean, new again. Everything except her. She could still feel Liam's kiss on her lips. Still hear the way he said her name, like it meant something sacred. And she hated that part of her, wanted it to mean something again. The bell above the door jingled softly. Liam walked in, a little hesitant, holding a bag of pastries and 2 cups of coffee. Peace offering, he said, setting them on the counter. Clara raised a brow. You think food fixes everything? He smirked. It's worked before. She tried not to smile, but failed. You're impossible. Maybe, he said, leaning on the counter. But you're smiling again. Her chest tightened. She looked away, tracing her fingers along the rim of her coffee cup. About last night, she began. He straightened, suddenly serious. Clara, you don't have to explain. I know it was confusing, she interrupted softly. It was confusing, Liam. He nodded slowly. Yeah, it was. For a moment, it felt like they were both waiting for the other to take it back, to undo what happened. But neither did. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver key. This was your grandmother's, he said. She wanted you to have it. Clara frowned, taking it. What's it for? He hesitated. The back room. The one she kept locked. Her heart skipped. She never let anyone in there. I know, he said quietly. But she told me. If you ever came back, you'd understand why. Before Clara could ask more, the door opened again. Liam. Elise stood in the doorway. Perfect as ever, her perfume floating in before she did. Her gaze flicked between them, the coffee cups, the closeness, and something unreadable passed through her eyes. There you are, she said tightly. You left before we could talk. Liam stepped back, his posture stiffening. We'll talk later, Elise. Her jaw tightened. I'll hold you to that. She turned to Clara, her smile thin but practiced. Good to see you settling in. And then she was gone, leaving the door swinging behind her, and the tension thick as smoke. Clara looked at Liam. She's not just a friend, is she? He didn't answer, and that silence told her everything. The locked room, the key felt heavier than it should. Clara held it in her palm that night, sitting alone in the dim bookstore, while the clock ticked softly in the background. The storm had left the air cool and quiet. Everyone else had gone home, even Liam. But his words still echoed in her head. She wanted you to have it. Her grandmother's secret. Her childhood mystery. The one room she'd never been allowed to enter. Clara stood, heart thumping, and walked to the back of the store. The door looked older than the others. Paint chipped, handle worn smooth by time. She slid the key in. It turned with a soft click. The air inside smelled like dust and lavender. Stacks of old boxes, piles of handwritten letters, and framed photos lined the shelves. And at the center of it all, a small wooden chest, half covered by a faded quilt. Clara knelt, brushing her fingers over it. Her grandmother's initials were carved on top, along with another set. LH, her breath caught. Liam Hart, hands trembling, she opened the chest. Inside were dozens of letters, tied with ribbon, the ink smudged from age. She pulled one free, unfolded it carefully. My dearest Rose, I know they wouldn't approve, but every word I write feels like breathing again. I can't stop thinking about you. And about our son. Clara froze. Son? Another letter. He looks like you, Rose. Same eyes. I promise I'll do right by him, even if I can't be there the way I want to be. Her hands shook harder. She pulled the last letter from the pile. This one signed clearly. With love always, Jane's heart. Clara's heart sank. Her grandmother's lover's last name. Hart, Liam's last name. She stumbled back, the world blurring around her. It couldn't be. Footsteps echoed behind her. Clara? Liam's voice, low and cautious. I saw the lights on. What are you doing in here? She turned slowly, the letter still in her hand. Tell me, she whispered, voice breaking. What aren't you telling me? Liam's face paled as his eyes fell on the chest. You opened it. Of course I did. She snapped. You knew, didn't you? About them. About all of this. He swallowed hard, his expression torn between guilt and something like fear. I was going to tell you, he said quietly. I just didn't know how. Tell me what? He took a step closer. That your grandmother and my grandfather were in love. That this isn't just your story, Clara. It's mine too. The words hit her like thunder. 2 families, 1 secret, and a love story that had come full circle through them. The weight of the past. For a moment, Clara couldn't breathe. The words hung in the air like smoke she couldn't clear. Your grandmother and my grandfather were in love. She sank into the nearest chair, staring at Liam. You knew? All this time? He nodded slowly. Not everything. My mom told me last year. Said my grandfather had an affair decades ago with a woman from this town. She never said her name, I didn't realize it was your grandmother until I saw the letters. Clara's chest tightened. And you didn't think to tell me? I didn't want to hurt you, he said softly. And honestly, I didn't know what it meant. He paused, running a hand through his hair. I didn't expect to fall for you. The room went still. Clara blinked. Fall for me? Liam's voice dropped, rough and raw. You think I came back here just for a job, Clara? I stayed because of you. Because every time I saw your face, it felt like I'd finally come home. Her heart wanted to believe him, but her mind wouldn't let her. How am I supposed to trust that, Liam? She whispered. After everything. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Because it's real. Whatever our grandparents did, whatever mess they left behind, it's not us. It doesn't have to be. Clara's throat tightened. You're asking me to forget the fact that our families have been hiding this for years, that our entire history is tangled together. I'm asking you, he said, stepping closer to see me. Not my last name, not the past, just me. She wanted to. But the ache in her chest wouldn't let her move. I need time, she said finally. To think. To breathe. Liam nodded, pain flickering across his face. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. He turned toward the door, pausing at the threshold. And Clara, he said quietly, without looking back, whatever you find out about them, don't let it stop you from believing in love. It's the only thing they ever got right. When he left, the silence rushed in again. Clara looked down at the letters scattered around her. Her grandmother's handwriting. Her history. And somewhere inside all that ink and dust, a reminder that love had always been complicated. And maybe worth the mess. The way you look at me. Weeks passed. The letters were now stacked neatly in a box on Clara's desk. Read, reread, and cried over more than once. She'd learned the truth. Her grandmother and Liam's grandfather had loved each other in secret. That life, family expectations, and fear tore them apart. They both moved on, raised families. That they never really stopped loving each other. And maybe Clara realized that's why it hurt so much. Because love, real love, doesn't vanish. It just waits for another lifetime to be right. The autumn festival arrived quietly that year. The town was lit with warm lights and cinnamon-scented air. And in the middle of the crowd, she saw him. Liam. He was standing by the coffee stand, a paper cup in hand, wearing that same soft smile that once made her believe in second chances. Their eyes met, and for a moment, everything around them blurred. Clara walked up slowly. Hey, he smiled. Hey yourself. There was a pause, the kind filled with words neither of them knew how to say. I read the rest of the letters, she said. They loved each other, even when it didn't make sense. Liam nodded. Maybe they were trying to teach us something. Clara's lips curved. That love is messy, that it's worth it, he said gently. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw everything she'd been running from. Truth, pain, and the terrifying, beautiful possibility of forever. I don't want to keep punishing you for what they did, she said finally. I'm tired of holding on to things that aren't ours. Liam's breath caught. So what are you saying? Clara smiled softly. I'm saying, maybe we write our own story this time. He stepped closer. So close she could feel his warmth. I'd like that. Then, like every love story that was ever meant to be, he kissed her. It wasn't desperate or rushed. Just soft, steady, and honest. Like a promise. When they finally pulled away, she whispered against his lips, Guess our grandparents would be proud. Liam chuckled, brushing her hair back. Let's just make sure we don't end the same way. And for the first time in a long while, Clara felt light. Like maybe love didn't have to hurt to be real. Like maybe this was home.
1 year later, The bookshop smelled of old pages and fresh paint. Clara had reopened it. The letter house. A small, cozy space filled with books, letters, and stories about people who once loved and lost. Liam was at the counter, sleeves rolled up, writing something on a notepad. "What are you doing?" she asked, leaning over. He grinned. "Writing you a letter, old-fashioned style." She laughed. "You could just text me, you know. Where is the romance in that?" he teased. And when he handed her the note, she unfolded it slowly. "To the woman who turned my family's history into hope. To the girl who made me believe again. Love, always, Liam." She smiled, tucking the note close to her heart. Because sometimes, the best love stories aren't about starting over. They are about continuing what should have never ended. And that is another chapter for Blessed Storyverse. If this story hit you in the feels, leave a like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Because trust me, the next plot twist is even crazier. Until next time, keep living like the main character. Bye.